So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Landon Rank. I am the Associate Director at SB ACT. We're a nonprofit here in Santa Barbara County, and we are partnering with the County of Santa Barbara to host this year's Point in Time Count. So we're really, really thrilled that you're all here. I know this is not an easy thing to ask from anyone to wake up so early on a weekday when many of us have work. But it's really, really worthwhile. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it as we get started. So I'm going to jump right in. I'll just mention, I'm going to ask everybody to stay muted during the presentation. Feel free to type questions in the chat, and I'll pause every couple slides to review questions. But then at the end, we'll have some time to actually kind of talk through some questions as well. So yeah, again, thank you. We really appreciate you being willing to do this with us. If you haven't registered yet, we'd really encourage you to do so. Just we need to be able to have everybody's name in the database so that we can assign you to teams. So many of you have probably already done that, and that's why you got the email to be here tonight. But I am going to put the URL in the chat window in case you have not registered yet. If you have any trouble registering, just shoot me an email and I will put that email address in the chat window. And sorry, let me resend this to the correct audience in the chat. There we go. And my email address is in the chat window. In case you have any issues registering, I can help you later on. All right, so we have a few things we're going to be covering tonight. We'll talk a little bit about just why are we doing this at all? What's the purpose of the point in time count? We'll be talking about the definition of homelessness that we'll be using for the count, just so you know what it is you're looking for. We'll talk about how you can safely and respectfully conduct the survey, because it is just an interesting thing. You're coming up to people really early in the morning and asking them some personal questions. So we just want to talk through some tips on that. And then we'll have some final reminders and next steps. There's a lot of you who I know have done this before. And so I think the temptation is going to be on Instagram or TikTok while it lasts this whole time while you're on the Zoom. So I just really encourage you to stay tuned in as much as you can. There are little things that change every year, and I'll try and highlight those as we go, but stay with me. So let's just talk about the purpose of the count. So this count is a snapshot. It's just one night of who is homeless throughout our entire county. We have a separate database that really gets a sense of how many people are experiencing homelessness in our county throughout the whole year, which is going to be a very different data set. But this particular data set is one night. And we do use this data to plan local homelessness assistance systems. It is really important for our funding sources from the federal and state government, and just generally helps us to raise public awareness of homelessness in our community. And really, that's part of why I know you all are here, is because you are maybe engaged in homelessness in some way, or just now volunteering. And so really, this is just one of those efforts. It is a federal requirement. So this is happening throughout the whole country, actually, usually in the last 10 days of January. And so for our county, we're going to be doing it on Wednesday, January 22nd. So who is actually counted in the point in time count? So there's a few different groups that we'll be looking at. So for sure, we're including anyone who you see who might be in a makeshift shelter, whether that's a tent or something else that's set up outside. Anyone on the streets, anyone in vehicles who might be sleeping in their vehicle. We'll talk more about how to actually specifically identify if somebody might be sleeping in their vehicle versus just sitting in their vehicle. People who might be sleeping in parks, in abandoned buildings, buses and train stations and airports. There's an asterisk there because we're not asking you to go inside of these buildings, but just scope around the outside to see if there is anyone. There are other definitions of homelessness that include other groups, but for the sake of this count, we are not including people who are couch surfing, people who are doubled up in like apartments that are maybe too small for 2 family units. We're not including those who are in rehabilitation or mental health facilities, those in jails or prisons, those who are awaiting eviction or foreclosure, or those who are hospitalized. So these are just the definitions that we are going off of for this particular count. But throughout the year, all the different services target different populations. All right. So actually, let me go back to this. I should have mentioned too, some of you might be placed in an area, like for example, in Carpinteria, there is the state campground right there. And we ask you not to enter like a campground that people have to pay to be in. There might be some confusion because those are tents too, but that's not, we don't want to count campgrounds. All right, so how do we actually do this count? Many of you know this already. It is a very early morning, and I just want to emphasize that again because last year we did have someone who thought it was 5:30 p.m. I wish I could say it was. It is 5:30 a.m. So we will be up very early. Um, the reason we're doing this is because early in the morning, people aren't likely to have moved around as much. And so it helps us to get an accurate count where we're not duplicating. If we did it later in the day, people might be walking around and they might get interviewed by one group and then get interviewed by another group in a different area later in that same period. Just a reminder, this is a volunteer opportunity. We're really grateful for you all for being here, but no one is being paid for this for volunteering. All right, and then I just want to talk through the schedule. So 5:30 a.m. is the meeting time. We will be sending out your pre-assigned logistics center hopefully by the end of this week. When you signed up, the survey asked you where would you like to be placed? You know, do you want to be in Santa Maria? Do you want to be in Goleta? Do you want to be in San Ynez? Or any other of the municipalities in our county? And everybody gets their first choice. So just know that, and you may not remember what you signed up for. That's okay. We'll send you that information by the end of this week, but we'll give you the specific address where you will need to be going. So you'll go to your logistics center. It might be a church, it might be like a community hall, and you'll sign in. There will be some of our staff there to help you get ready that morning. You'll get your volunteer lanyard on. It just says volunteer in big letters to identify yourself. The team there will help you find your assigned team. So some of you may have signed up with your friends and you'll be assigned together, and others of you might be going solo and we'll just have assigned you to a team to join. So no one's going alone, but it'll be very easy once you get in the room to figure out where you're supposed to be going. We'll have staff there to help you. You'll also want to make sure that morning that you're all good to go with the Counting Us app. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through this training. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to go ahead and download the Counting Us app because that'll just make the training make a little more sense. And then our staff will go over some safety protocols and just kind of a few reminders before you get out on the count. So at around 6 a.m. is when teams will go out into the field. And so once a whole team has arrived, they can basically just check in with our staff and then take off. And then you'll be out counting until 9 a.m. So 9 a.m. is the actual finish time. Some of you may finish early, in which case you can come back to the logistics center. We might give you a new map for a different area and send you right back out again. But at 9 a.m., we really want everyone to stop because at that point, that's when we start to see a lot of movement of people throughout the city. And so we don't want to risk the duplication of our numbers. So at that point, we do ask that you return back to the logistics center. You'll need to bring back all the materials. We'll talk through some of those things that you're going to have, but you'll have some gift cards, some hygiene kits that you'll be handing out as you do the survey. And we just need to make sure all that gets returned. And that our staff know that you're completed with your area. So these are the logistics centers. As I mentioned, I will send out the assignments for all of you by the end of this week. And just a reminder, it's all just based on what you indicated on the survey. So if you said, I want to be in Carpinteria, you'll be assigned to Carpinteria. But if you have any questions about that, once you get your assignment, just let us know. I just wanted to note two things. One is that last year for Goleta, they were at the Goleta City Hall. This year, it'll be at the Goleta Valley Community Center on Hollister. And then Isla Vista, there's always some confusion because that Ivy Community Service District room is like right next door to the Ivy Community Room. So they have really similar names, but we'll have a lot of signs, paper signs out front pointing you to where the point in time count is. So just be on the lookout for those in the dark and don't hesitate to use your phone flashlight. All right. So there's a question about how we're doing on recruiting volunteers. We would love for you to twist arms. That's a great question. As of like 10 minutes ago, I just checked, we're at around 280 people. We would love to get up to 350 or even 400 if we can. We usually get a lot of signups at the very last minute, but the sooner we get them, the more we're able to start assigning teams more quickly. So yeah, please help us spread the word. I can put a flyer in the chat at the end of the presentation. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. All right. So when it comes to teams, so some of you, as I said, may have chosen to sign up with your friends. You can write down a team name when you registered. And so we'll be putting those groups together. And then the rest of you will just be assigning you to teams based on which city you chose to be in. And then as soon as your whole group is there, you'll see a roster for your group. So you'll know, okay, there's 4 people in my group. And once all 4 of them are there, then you can take off. So generally groups will be 3 to 4 people. We do want to encourage you, if you did come with your friends or someone that you know, it might be a good idea to carpool just because sometimes the logistics centers have limited parking like right on site. So you just never know. So it's good to just think ahead with that. Yeah, and so even if you did register already, you can still go back and add a team name. If you log into your app and add the team name, you can do that as long as it's by end of day this Friday. And you can feel free to email me if you have questions about how to do that. We do sometimes have volunteers under the age of 18, and that's fine. We just need to have them be with a parent or guardian. So each team will be assigned to a map location. You're going to get a big map, and we'll show you what that looks like. But we're trying to cover the entire county. So we assign groups to different census tracts, and your job will be to cover that whole tract. Some of those tracts are going to be very urban. Some of them are going to be very rural. And so for the really rural ones, for example, you might just be driving the whole time. And for the more urban ones, you might be walking the whole time. So it all just depends on whether or not your team has a car, which was a part of the registration question. So we'll be assigning accordingly. All right. There's a question about having lived experience volunteers. The answer is yes, and I'll explain that to those of you who aren't familiar with that terminology. I'll explain that in a little bit. Okay, so just a reminder, I put this in the chat window a little bit ago, but I'm going to put it again just because it never hurts to repeat this. If you haven't registered yet, we really want you to do so that we can assign you to a team. And so I'm putting that link in the chat window again. You can also use this QR code. But once you've done that, you may have noticed, and I know that many of you may not have, it may go to your spam folder, but you got an email right away as soon as you registered. At the bottom of that email is the button to update your password. So this is going to be how you can actually get into the Counting Us app. So I encourage you, if you haven't figured that out yet, I'd encourage you to try and find that email. You can see on this email, this person registered on November 21st. So you might have to dig back through your emails to whenever it was that you registered. And you're going to want to find that green button that says update password. So your username and your password on the Counting Us app are just going to be, the username is this email that you used, and your password is the one you're going to create here. So I encourage you, if you haven't done that already, maybe try and log in because we're going to be just looking at the app a little bit on the next couple slides. There was a question about community service hours for teens, and yes, we can definitely sign off on community service hours. If the youth can just bring the form when they do the point in time count, one of our staff can sign off on that. All right. So once you're in the app, so once again, you get that your email address that you used, and hopefully you've used that email and found that email and clicked that button to update your password. Then you can go ahead and log into the app. You can see on the far left of this screen here what that login looks like. You hit login once you've punched in your email and that password, and then it's going to hopefully take you to this screen here in the middle where you just select the 2025 point in time count. There's going to be some cases where it doesn't direct you right there. I know somebody on this call earlier was mentioning theirs said 2024. If you've done the point in time count in years past, it might take you back to last year's count. So just look at your screen. And if it doesn't say 2025, then you're going to need to change count. And there may be a couple other steps to that. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But assuming it says 2025, assuming you've been able to get there, then you hit that green button that says Santa Barbara 2025 point in time count. It's going to take you here to this page with all the different surveys on it. At this point, the surveys are not live, and so you can actually feel free to use these surveys as much as you want, basically up until Wednesday. That's when we'll go live on the 22nd. So you can feel free, mess around. You'll be able to play around with the app and just kind of see what it looks like in there. All right. I do see a comment in here about someone having a flip phone. That's totally fine. We'll just make sure that each group has at least one person with a smartphone with the app downloaded. We still just need other people for safety, and it's always good to have just a phone. So yeah, so even if you don't have a smartphone, we still would love for you to volunteer. All right. If your app says no counts available, definitely email me. I'll put my email in the chat window. Thanks for that. And then oh, this is a great question. I see somebody asked about a setup key. So if you're most of the registrations, I don't think are going to ask for this, but if you see your app asking you for a setup key, the setup key you're going to use is County of SB, all one word, lowercase. I just put it in the chat window there. So hopefully most of you won't have to do that, but if you get asked for a setup key, it's going to be County of SB, all one word. All right, I mentioned this briefly on the last slide, but if for some reason it doesn't say 2025, if it says 2024 or 2023 point in time count on your app, then you'll need to use that setup key to change counts. So there should be a button that says change count that you can use and go from there. If you do have further questions about that and the steps it takes you through, just let me know. And again, I'll put my email in the chat window for you. I'm going to have a lot of emails to answer after this. All right. Let's talk about preparation. So we do encourage everybody to wear comfy clothes, comfy shoes. Even if you're in a driving route, you'll still, if you encounter somebody, you'll still need to actually get out of your car to speak with them. And so we just encourage you to wear clothes that you feel comfortable in. Do dress warmly. It's been chilly out and there's a lot of sickness going around. So we just want to make sure everybody's staying warm. Again, carpool if possible, because the parking can be limited. If you're on a team with your friends, maybe check which of your friends is willing to drive. I know it was on the registration survey, but it might be good to communicate amongst yourselves as well. Please bring a charged phone. Whether you're bringing a smartphone or just a flip phone, we just want to make sure everybody has a charged phone out in the field. Encourage you to bring a flashlight. It is dark until, I don't know, maybe around 6:30, between 6:30 and 7 most mornings. So it never hurts. Even, like I said, finding the door to get into your logistics center, it could be a struggle in the dark. So I just encourage you bring a flashlight or at least have your phone flashlight ready. You could bring a mask and hand sanitizer if you feel comfortable doing so. Especially many of us will be in cars with other people. So we totally just want to acknowledge that that's a good thing to do if you're so inclined. This is a rain or shine event because it's a federal mandate. We have to go whether it's raining and sleeting, which it won't be, but or if it's sunny out. So We're not expecting any rain at this point, but we do encourage you to just check the weather the night before and be prepared to come on out. Get as much rest as you can. That's going to be our encouragement to you, but don't forget to wake up to your alarm. And then definitely feel free to email us with questions. Sometimes I get emails the morning of the count with people letting us know that they're not going to be able to make it. And I really appreciate that. But just know it's going to be tough to reach us via email the morning of. Once you get to your logistics center, our staff will give you a phone number so you can call us if you run into any questions. All right. So here is a sample of what a map might look like that you would get when you get to the logistics center. So maybe you're on your team of 4 people, and you get this map. This is in Santa Maria. And so you can see it's pretty clear that you'll be inside the colored area. So you don't need to go out into the white and gray outside of your colored area. Sometimes there's some confusion about the borders of your area, because you can see there's like streets that your border goes right down the middle of. So we encourage you to try and stay inside those borders. So for example, you can see the very bottom border of this map is Stowell Road. So we would encourage this group to stay on the north side of Stowell Road, right? You don't have to cross the street and go to the south side of Stowell Road, because that would be in someone else's census tract. You can see also there may be highlighted spots on your map, highlighted yellow. This won't be the case for all maps, but for some there will. Those highlighted spots are hot spots. So those are places where we know that there are often people who are experiencing homelessness, either hanging out or potentially sleeping. So our encouragement is if you see a hot spot on your map, maybe think about starting there and then go to the rest of your map afterwards, because it might be the spot where you're most likely to see people first. Last year, there was some confusion. People thought they only had to go to the hot spot, but we really want you to go to the whole colored section on the map. We encourage you to start in the hot spot. Let me see. I am just looking through my notes. Oh, one thing that comes up a lot is sometimes we'll have volunteers say, well, I didn't see anybody, so I don't know if I want to do this again, or I feel like I failed. And honestly, that's just as helpful of information. It's really important that we know where people are and where they're not, so that we can direct resources appropriately. So if you go out the whole morning and you don't see anyone, that is still helpful data for us. Please know that's still really valuable. A few other things we'll keep talking about, but please do not enter private property at any point. So you can go into parks, you can go on sidewalks. Please do not go on train tracks. Please do not go on highway territory. We will actually have outreach teams going to those areas later in the day. So we don't want you to be putting yourself at risk doing that. Let's see. Yeah, and in terms of finding people, it is just going to be really important that you're walking around, making yourself known. If you're calling out and saying good morning, even if it's just dark and you're not sure if there's someone there, that may cause someone to stir and you realize, yeah, that is a person. So then you're able to go and get a little closer. So really just make as much of a walk around your whole area as you can, and really make yourself known. Those are going to be your best strategies for finding people. All right. So when it comes to initiating contact with someone, we have a few tips, and we'll give a little demonstration later on. But we encourage you not to approach anyone too closely or too quickly. You can imagine if you were sleeping in the dark and someone started walking up to you, you might feel potentially unsafe. So you want to walk slowly, give them a respectful distance. We encourage you to call out and say, good morning, sir, I'm a volunteer, good morning, ma'am, so that they know in some sense that you're a friendly voice, that you're a volunteer, that you're maybe giving a little bit of a sense of what you might be doing. And of course, we do want you to avoid putting yourself in any unsafe situation. I mentioned staying off of train tracks. I'd say if you are going into an area where you see encampments of people, please just make sure the whole time that you're doing this count, you are with at least one other member from your team. You shouldn't be alone at any point. We'll talk more about safety in a little bit, but just be sensitive. Imagine how this might feel if you were in this person's shoes and being asked personal questions and potentially being woken up in the morning too. So just be very kind and just really help people to know kind of why you're doing this and why it matters. Again, we encourage you to introduce yourself, maybe give your name. It does help just to break down barriers when people can see each other as humans with this kind of thing. And also, it's going to be really important. The first question of the survey asks, hey, has anyone already interviewed you? Because if so, you don't want to interview them again. We don't want to double our data. If you did indicate on your survey that in your registration that you do want to drive, just make sure that you're prepared to do so that morning. As I said, each team will be hopefully 3 to 4 people. Sometimes we have teams of 2, but we try and get them around that many. All right. Had a couple questions. Are flashlights okay? Flashlights are okay. You know, again, I think it comes to this question of being sensitive to people. Just be careful not to shine them directly at anyone. You know, if you are shining your flashlight into a dark area and you see someone, maybe just shine it, you know, away so that you can see where you're walking, but don't shine it directly at them as you're walking or talking to them. But please do feel free to bring flashlights. It's helpful for safety. Do we enter into a vacant building house? No, we'll go over this in later slides that we'd ask that if you see someone in an abandoned building, like from the street, that you can call out to them. And if they want to come walk to you, or if you just note as an observation that you saw someone but didn't interview them, that's fine. We don't want you going into any vacant buildings. Right. So I think with this, I believe I have Cindy from Be Well on the call. I'm not sure if that's correct, but if so, I'm going to turn it to Cindy for safety. Cindy, are you there?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
For safety, I would just suggest, not going into like the outskirts of something that seems like it's going out your way. For example, going past a railroad or things like that. To always, listen to your gut feeling. So if you see someone is not wanting to engage, don't try to encourage them to, just respect that and walk away. Um, Also be aware and vigilant of where you're stepping. Sometimes there's needles on the floor and things like that, so look out for that. Does anyone have any other questions about safety?
I'll just go over some of these tips here on the screen too. With all of this, we want to ask people if they're willing to be surveyed. That's important that they have agency and they get to choose. We ask that you don't take any photos in the field. And part of that is just for confidentiality. We want to protect people's confidentiality, and this data is really intended to be used in the aggregate. Stay with your teammates. You should never be alone this whole morning. Please do call your logistics center captain if you have any problems. We had one team last year that I think had a tire blowout. And so we want to know that because potentially we can assist, or at minimum, we'll at least know, okay, that's survey area, we need to send somebody else out. And we already talked about Caltrans and railroad property. Like I said, do not enter any abandoned buildings. You can approach tents, but we'd ask that you don't go inside. Don't go inside any hard to access areas. We're not, looking for anyone to go down into sewer pipes or anything like that. Please don't advertise your count location. As I said, we're just trying to keep information as confidential as we can. We'll review some of these safety protocols. Our staff members will that morning, so you'll hear about some of these things again. But again, if there is a true emergency or at any point, call 911. Now let's see, there's a question. Yeah, it's a good note just to be aware that some people will have pets and dogs, and so just to be mindful of that. And especially as you're approaching in the dark, again, that's a good reason to call out while you're still a distance off. All right. Thank you, Cindy. Cindy's still here, so if there are a few further questions too, please feel free to put them in the chat. So we encourage you, again, be aware of your surroundings. Stay out of, that should say tight or enclosed spaces. Maintain appropriate distance. We don't want you to stay out of sight. We want you to be visible. Please do honor requests not to participate or skip, or if somebody wants to skip questions, that's totally fine. They are personal questions, and so we want to respect people's decisions. You don't have to answer them in the app. You can put did not answer. It's always a good idea to wear bright colored clothes just so you're more visible to people. It'll just help you to appear less threatening as well. And closed-toed shoes for the reasons that Cindy mentioned. We'll give you that lanyard the morning of that's brightly colored. So please wear that. Carry your ID, carry your phone. We'd encourage you to leave your other belongings behind, just to help make, if nothing else, to help make your travels go more smoothly. And definitely call us if you run into any questions or issues. So we'll have a demo in a minute, but we encourage you, when you first see someone, smile, make eye contact. They're really powerful actions because a lot of people just are not getting eye contact from day to day. So it's just a really good way to show you're not a threat. You're just here to be friendly and ask some questions. It's good to ask before you get really close to someone or sit next to them. Make sure and give them personal space. And this is really important. Never stand above someone or talk down to them. It's an interesting power dynamic, but we just really encourage you, if someone is down on the ground, we encourage you to squat down. That way you can be more at eye level. It'll also just help the survey feel a little bit less awkward. And please note, anyone who completes a survey, we want to make sure and give them a gift card for doing so. We'll have, depending on the area, you may have McDonald's gift cards or Starbucks gift cards for $5. And even if they don't complete the survey, if you talk with them and they say, I don't want to complete it, you can still offer them a hygiene kit, if that's something that they're interested in. Right. Let's see. What about Spanish speakers? So we will have some census tracts that are known areas where we want to make sure we have some Spanish speakers. I believe that was in the registration survey. I'll double check that. But we'll be assigning people based on that partly as well. Someone asking about sending the PowerPoint after the meeting. Yes, we can share this afterwards. We won't have Narcan that morning, but I appreciate that. I am not sure. I'd have to get back to you on that. And then for someone who might have walking concerns, please just shoot me an email. I'll put my email in the chat window and let me know, because then we'll just assign you to a team that's going to be doing more driving, so it won't be a concern. Thank you for asking. All right, so a few other things. Please don't be overly emotional in your affect. You can be friendly, but just try and stay mellow, because we're just trying to be very non-anxious presences. Please do not touch anyone. We encourage you that you can call out to someone if you see that they might be sleeping and see if they stir. And we do want to try and survey as many people as possible. So we actually really want you to call out and say good morning. Or if you see a tent, call out and ask if anyone is there. But if they're not responding and if they're not turning over, don't touch them. Don't shake them to wake them. We don't want to do anything like that. We can let them sleep at that point. Want to avoid being judgmental. You may encounter someone who, as Cindy mentioned, there may be drug paraphernalia. There could be, a situation that you're just maybe not used to seeing. Really, the point of this survey is to meet people where they're at. And so we just want to try and maintain a very non-judgmental presence. It's going to be important if they ask about housing and services, please do not promise anything. You can tell them, here we have, these information cards that have places to get connected to resources, and we encourage you to use them. But we just want to make sure and not promise anything that we can't deliver on. We encourage you not to give money or offer rides for the sake of discount. This is purely a data collection exercise. Stay with your team, and please do not share any confidential information from a participant. All right, we do have a little demo video here. So I'm going to, let me just actually stop sharing my screen for a minute so that I can make sure I have the audio set up correctly on it. And I will play it. All right. Hey there, how's it going?
Fine.
Hey, I'm Landon. I'm a volunteer with the Point in Time Count. Is it okay if I come talk to you for just a second? Thank you. Um, so I'm a volunteer with the county's annual Point in Time Count. Are you familiar with the Point in Time Count?
No.
So this is an annual survey that our county does of everyone experiencing homelessness. We want to get an accurate count of how many people are experiencing homelessness, where they're at, just so we can have a sense of how to better direct resources throughout our whole county. Would you be open to talking with me for a few minutes?
I don't know. What are you gonna do with my info?
So that's a good question. Your information is totally anonymous. The only data that will be shared will be like charts and graphs of the whole of what we gather today. And also, if you don't feel comfortable answering any of the questions, we can skip any of them at any point.
I don't know. I think I already did this last year. And I'm still homeless, so I don't understand why I should do this again.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry to hear that. I can understand that would be hard. The survey data is really just to help improve our system overall, so that we can better offer services throughout the county and try to improve over time. But at the end of the survey too, there will be a chance for you to just share if there's anything specific that you need and if you'd like to be connected with an outreach worker so that they can assist you more.
Well, what kind of assistance are you talking about?
So, unfortunately, I don't know. I'm not an outreach worker myself. I'm just a volunteer. But I have some information cards of different places you can go to get support services. And then also, I have a gift card if you're willing to participate in the survey on a whole. Would you be interested in just going through some of these questions with me?
All right, sure.
Cool. All right. So apart from his boyish good looks, what did you notice about how the volunteer approached or how the volunteer spoke and how the conversation went? Calm and humble. Yeah, the humble is important. Just you don't need to know all the answers for this. At eye level, thank you. Without judgment, openly. Crouch down, right? Trying to be non-threatening. Yeah, I think we're encountering people, some of whom are in some of the hardest points of their lives. So we just want to be really kind as we are providing this. Let's see, direct, clear communication. Really just be clear about what it is you're doing, that it's about the survey, staying in your lane, giving the person a sense of agency. Yeah. Um, any other questions or anything about approaching an individual? Okay. Hey there. Hey there. Apologies. All right, so when you get to this point, you've introduced yourself to the person. Now you want to introduce the survey. So you really want to explain what this annual count is. That really the point of it is to improve our system, to help us provide better programs and services throughout our whole county for people experiencing homelessness. So the information gathered helps to figure out where services should be directed, in general, what kinds of services are needed. You'll see some of the survey questions get at like, what are the specific needs that people are facing? The survey takes less than 10 minutes. As I mentioned, there are a lot of personal questions, so just be prepared for that. And as I said, you can skip any question anytime if they don't want to continue with it. You can also stop partway through. There's an option to just save the survey or submit the survey even if you haven't completed it. As I mentioned, if they are not willing to participate, but you know, based on the surroundings and the context, you believe that they are experiencing homelessness, there is a separate survey on that page called an observation survey. And so maybe I'll go back to that slide in a little bit that shows you, but you'll choose which survey to do. Oh, here it is. Great. So you can see on the left side of the screen here, there's basically 3 surveys you're going to want to be choosing from. The top one, or I guess it's more like the second one, is the unsheltered survey. So that's going to be if the person says, yes, I'm willing to talk with you and answer some questions. The third option there, unsheltered observation tally, that's if you see somebody who you believe is experiencing homelessness, who you know, they're not willing to participate. So you just want to mark that they were there, and maybe mark if you were able to figure out a description or where they were located, then you're going to want to put that information in. And then finally, the last one is for vehicles or structure observation. So if you see a vehicle that you believe is inhabited by a person, but they're not willing to talk to you, or just no one is coming out from an RV, that kind of thing, then please do fill out that observation. Similar with the structure observation, if you see a tent and you suspect there may be someone inside, or some kind of makeshift shelter, but you know, they're not coming out, or you're not sure, then you can mark it there. If you see someone in a vehicle, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, and they are willing to talk to you, then you complete the unsheltered survey. There's the same survey for anybody who's experiencing homelessness on the streets versus in a vehicle. But again, if they're not willing, then you just complete the observation. So once you've clicked on the survey, the app will take you to a map where you can kind of drag it around and make sure and find the location where you are, so that we can get that geographic data that we need. And then it'll start asking you those survey questions. And so you'll easily be able to click on the drop-down menus to choose from the options there. So you'll see, like, if there's a question, for example, that asks about the person's ethnicity, you can click on the drop down and you'll see all the list of options there for you as you're asking the question. You can also see, actually, can you see? You can't see in this screenshot, but there's an option, like if you don't have any cell service where you are, there's an option to still fill out the survey. You just hit the button that says Save Draft down at the bottom instead of Submit. Then once you get back into cell reception, you can just hit the Submit button, and you'll be able to visit your drafts at any point. You can see on the far left screen there, there's the drafts box. Yes, and we will be talking about vehicular homelessness in just a second here. If they're using a wheelchair or other medical device, good question. There are questions that ask about physical disabilities if the person is being surveyed. If you're just marking an observation, that is a good thing to note. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Cora from the Safe Parking Program to talk a little bit about counting vehicles.
Hi, Landon. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Landon, for putting all this together. You always do such a great job. And this slide that you do pretty much says it all. I don't even really need to talk about it, but I will. When you're out looking for vehicles, there's things that you will typically look for. And it's basically, you know, on this slide that you're going to look for windows that are blocked out. Sometimes people block them out with regular curtains or fabric or cardboard. So you're going to be looking for that. And then the condensation on the windows is something else. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between condensation on the inside and dew on the outside. So you just kind of do your best. Also, the things to look for are things that might be outside. They might have a lot of things sitting outside. Maybe here it says generators, bikes, storage containers, stuff like that. But the most important thing that I want to stress is not to, you know, you will carry a flashlight, but don't flash it, you know, try to keep it down low, try to keep it by, you know, the license plate. We don't want to shine it in their windows. Sometimes it's tempting because you want to actually see if somebody's in there, but you don't want to shine it in the windows. And you don't want to knock. And as the day goes on and the morning starts to come, at that time, you're probably going to get more opportunity to actually do the survey with people, but typically in the middle of the night at 5:30, 6 o'clock, not much is happening. More along the line, 7 o'clock, people might be waking up, and at that time you might want to approach them and see if they are willing to do this survey. And then also you want to make sure that you fill out as much information you can about the vehicle so that it doesn't get duplicated when you're doing the survey. And also, our team typically will go out, and when we're doing it, we put flyers on the vehicle. So if other teams are going around and they're in the neighborhood and they're not necessarily doing vehicles, but they see one, if there's a flyer on it, then they know it doesn't need to be counted. And I don't know, I think I've been doing it now for about 4 years. It's always a good time. So go have fun. Yeah. Well, and also go out there and have fun, but at the same time, you're going to be with your partner, so you don't want to be talking too loud because you don't want to wake people up. But it's always a good time. That's all I got.
I'll second that. It is a good time.
It is.
I'm just going to reemphasize what Cora said. Do not knock on any vehicles or RVs, and do not shine flashlights in them. You might be wondering, how do I get someone's attention then? So you can wave if you see someone. And also from a respectful distance, you could call out again, say good morning. But yeah, we're not going to be banging on any doors. Is a local warming center info included on the resource list we are passing out? I believe so. I'll have to double check. The warming centers have not been open countywide. They've been open in North County some days, but it's all contingent on the weather that particular day. So they may or may not be open on the day of the count. And again, just a reminder, if you come across a vehicle, if there's a person there and they're willing to be surveyed, you use that unsheltered survey for a person in a vehicle. If they are not answering or they don't want to be surveyed, you do the vehicle observation. All right, we are in the home stretch here, so get your questions ready. If you haven't downloaded Counting Us yet, now's a good time to do so. So as I said, at the end of this week, you'll receive a follow-up email that'll have the exact address for your logistics center, and also maybe just a couple of these pointers. We'll go over these again that morning, but we just want to encourage you to keep it fresh in your mind. Please do help us recruit more volunteers. People can sign up all the way through the end of Friday. We're going to start trying to put the teams together over the weekend. So yeah, help us spread the word. We still need ideally over 100 more. And they get plenty of rest the night before the count. I know it's hard. We won't have coffee for you, I'm sad to say, but we brought it in years past and nobody drank it. So you're on your own for coffee. We really encourage you to bring some for yourself if that's helpful. All right. So we will go ahead and go for some questions. I see Emily responded about the Warming Center hotline. Thank you, Emily. So you can just call that phone number to find out if the warming center will be open on that particular day. Somebody asked about, what do you mean capture identifying marks on the vehicle, take a picture? So let's go back to that one. Yeah, I believe there is just a section for just general notes and observations. If you see, there's a large shatter on the windshield or something that, markings on the side that make it very distinctive. Those are things you can note just to help us figure out who you might be talking about so we don't duplicate the same thing. And then I saw a hand raised. Was there a question? Otherwise, I'll go back to the chat.
Yeah, that was me. This is Anna. So right now I'm speaking on behalf of the League of Women's Voters. They really wanted to do the count with safe parking. So should they just put it on there that they want to be zoned like where safe parking is? Or what's the best way for them to voice that?
Gotcha. So we're not actually sending any volunteers with the safe parking team this year. But everybody is, all the volunteers are asked to count vehicles if they see them wherever they're placed. So we can talk more about that if you have questions about that, but the safe parking team is actually going out even earlier in the morning to do their thing. And so we're not sending any volunteers with them.
Okay, not a problem. I'll report it back. Thank you.
Thanks for checking about that.
So Landon, are we I guess my question is, if there's a block captain or somebody that seems to have a lot of information on the encampments around them or people around them that may not be awake, can we take that information, or do we actually have to talk to the people involved?
Yeah, ideally you would talk to the people involved because there's individual surveys for each person.
Okay.
But you know, do the best you can. If they're not willing, then you know, I'd say whatever that block captain shares with you, you can just mark it in the notes section on their survey, because it's all good information.
Okay.
It's a good question. Yeah, we will share these slides afterwards with you all. And then someone had asked about, can we go over how to get the 2025 survey? Let me see if I can just go back to that slide. So as I mentioned, there may be some of you for whom you did the point in time count in years past. And so the app is taking you back to years past. And so if that's the case, let me pull up the screen here. If you log into Counting Us and it says anything but 2025, if it says 2024, for example, then you need to press the button that says change count. It should be on there.
Okay, it's Lynn that has this question. So it says count is locked, but I don't see a change
Okay.
count.
So maybe if you can stick around for a few minutes, maybe we can talk it through after, because I'll have to look at this.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Hey, Landon, if I might just add, all you need to do is if you go on, if you have the app is where it says exactly as you said, change count, just click on that and it will automatically update to 2025 and then you get to 2025 and then click on that.
I don't have a change count on
Yeah, I
this.
think there's,
I do,
Okay.
right at the beginning, right there.
Mhm.
Oh, okay,
When you go to the splash page.
all right. My husband's got it, so I'll see if I can.
I really, really appreciate those of you who are troubleshooting this right now. It's so much easier to do this now than when we're all bleary-eyed at 5:30 in the morning. So, and you have time to email us too if there's other issues that come up with it. So thank you.
I also, I'm here with Shauna, with Path, and she had a good suggestion about if we witness somebody who may be having an overdose, maybe providing like a resource about what to do in those situations. I don't know if you want to explain it better, Shauna.
I was just wondering if you were going to go over maybe what an OD looks like and what they can do if they come across it.
Yeah, maybe Cindy, if you're on the call, I don't know if you want to speak to this, but I will say if you see somebody who you think is in any kind of medical distress, it's a 911 call. But Cindy, are you able to speak to that?
Yes, I would suggest calling 911 if you happen to have the resources like a Narcan kit, if you know how to use it, I encourage that. However, if you're someone who's never used it, I would call 911. But before that, I would check for signs of an overdose. So to make sure that they're unconscious or that you see slow or irregular breathing, take note of their skin if it's like pale or blue. If you could see their eyes, just the dilation of their pupils, if they're small. If you see any like vomiting or foaming, just to identify that is an overdose. Because sometimes people are just going through like a withdrawal and coming down after using. So it's important to identify what is occurring.
I appreciate you asking that. That's not something we've encountered during the point in time count in years past, but I appreciate the sensitivity to that because it is an issue. Oh, great to hear, Lynn. Thank you. All right. Any last questions before we wrap it up?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. We appreciate you. I will send out these slides and we will send out your logistics center assignments the end of this week. So thank you all again and feel free to reach out with questions.
Hey,
Thanks,
Landon,
Landon.
I just on my app,
Great presentation.
it shows me at a different location. Is that because they haven't been updated yet and it'll go to the correct location letter? Because it shows me, I know that it shows me on the west side.
It's probably going off of either old data or like, I know I had you fill out the form before I emailed you about Isla Vista, so we'll
Okay.
fix it.
Okay, just FYI.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, bye.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.